right, welcome to another episode of Piecing It Together, the podcast where we take a look at a new movie and try to figure out what movies inspired it. And today on the show, we are talking about Lisa Frankenstein, written by Diablo Cody, directed by Zelda Williams. And joining me to talk about it, first time on the show, we've got Tia Bean. We have a great, fun conversation, lots of puzzle pieces to get into with this one, lots of horror and goofy, campy, kitschy horror and comedy horror and all different kinds of horror, but a lot of really fun stuff. So that is coming up here in a second. Before we get to it, I do want to remind you, as always, to make sure you are subscribed to Piecing It Together wherever you listen to podcasts. You can follow us on social media at Piecing Pod. And don't forget to check out our Facebook group, Popcorn and Puzzle Pieces, where we continue the conversation about all the movies we talk about here on the show. I also have a Patreon, the Produced by David Rosen Patreon, where I post bonus and advanced content from Piecing It Together, from Awesome Movie Year, which is another movie podcast that I produce, and from my music career. Lots of great stuff over there, so check it out. It's patreon.com/bydavidrosen. We appreciate you just being out there listening, but if you want to support the show in that way, it's, of course, very much appreciated. So with that said, let's get into this conversation about Lisa Frankenstein. All right, it's time to get into Lisa Frankenstein. And with me, I've got Tia Bean. Tia, thanks so much for being here.
Of course. I'm very excited to be here.
Oh, I'm so happy to have you. And this is going to be a fun one to get into.
Oh, yeah.
I think there's a lot of stuff to get to. But before we get into the movie, it is your first time on the show. Tell my listeners a little about you.
Sure. So I moved to Vegas like 3 years ago. I think, what mostly qualifies me to be on this particular episode or on your podcast in general is one, I run my own podcast, my weird little podcast, which you've been on. And I record that whenever my mental health lets me. And so I'll probably have episodes coming out maybe end of April. We'll see.
Sure.
But we just talk about like weird stuff, cryptid, spooky stuff. But also I am an actress and a tour guide or former tour guide. I was a tour guide at Universal Studios in Hollywood for the Backlot tour. So I'm very familiar with the Universal monsters.
Sure.
It's definitely on theme with today's movie that we're going to be talking about. I've been around the horror haunts community for a while. I've been in several haunts, Halloween Horror Nights and Dark Harbor. And, I just love spooky stuff. And yeah, Lisa Frankenstein was like my whole aesthetic. Oh my goodness. That movie was like my dream of a movie, So
Sure.
But yeah, that's just a little bit about me.
Right on. Yeah, I think this movie for people who are into this kind of stuff, like it's playing right into every single little one of those kinds of aesthetics, like just the vibes in general of just loving horror, but also like loving the campy kitschiness of horror and all that. And so, yeah, Diablo Cody really captures that in the screenplay. I think before we start getting into puzzle pieces, we should talk briefly about the fact that this movie, it didn't do that great opening weekend, but I think it's already made its budget back, and like I think it's starting to get more of an audience. This seems like one of those slow growers, cult classic in the making. Are you hearing a lot of people talk about it in like your horror communities?
So every time I mention it to someone, they're like, "Oh, I haven't heard of that," and then I describe it to them, and they're like, "Oh, that sounds awesome. I'm definitely gonna have to check that out." So I don't know if that's because of advertising or what. My Facebook algorithm loves me, so like I found it very easily, like, or it found me, but I'm on the internet like 20 of the 24 hours of the day, so I was able to find it. But yeah, when I mention it to anyone, they've never heard of it. So
yeah, they're just not really putting the word out for this movie to like general audiences or whatever. I feel like usually I will throw to my guest for the first puzzle piece, but I feel like we should just get this one out in the open right away. This is a Diablo Cody script. I think we should talk about Jennifer's body as a first puzzle piece here because like they did the same shit with that. You know, that
Yeah.
movie just got buried, and critics were mixed on it at the time to negative, and audiences just didn't show up. And sure enough, it built its following over the years. Now everybody considers it like this classic,
Mhm.
but at the time nobody watched it. Both are movies that again deal with, they're built right into the horror aesthetic, the horror vibes, the horror tradition, but doing it in a very campy, very fun way, a very female way, and I think it's really a good jumping off point for like talking about what Lisa Frankenstein is.
Yeah. I feel like it's gonna be a really good, like, slumber party movie, you know?
Yes,
Like, if
yeah,
I was in middle school or high school, like, I would definitely want all my girlfriends over and, like,
hmm
watch Lisa Frankenstein because it's, like, if my parents walked in on me watching it, I'd probably be okay, but there's, like, just enough gore and violence to, like, really be, edgy with that.
yeah,
So, it'll definitely be a cult classic and grow. Um,
yeah, for sure.
I'm kind of a bad horror movie fan because I've never seen Jennifer's Body.
Really?
So,
Okay.
yeah, you'll have to spoil it for me, you know?
I actually hadn't seen it until actually I think it was 2020 when we were all locked up in the house and I watched like a million movies. I think that's when I finally caught up with it. But yeah, I mean, Megan Fox is, perfect
Mm,
for that role of like, this kind of like this character who like plays into all of those horror tropes and does it again in a very campy, very kitschy kind of way. It's a movie that revels in violence and in gore, but at the same time is not scary necessarily. It's just meant to be fun, and it's been meant to be like hell yeah, kill those guys, like go for
oh,
it,
yeah.
Megan Fox, and I think Diablo Cody is like right in that same realm here with Lisa Frankenstein. I mean, so like just to get into the plotting of this movie a little bit, in Lisa Frankenstein, this girl Lisa Swallows, played by Kathryn Newton, she basically comes to find this undead guy who she hides in her room and has to like kind of help him regain his mortality, I guess, so to speak. And in a lot of ways, she just doesn't give him a voice, and he doesn't have a voice because he's a zombie, but she
Yeah.
doesn't really give him the chance to have one. And it's very like kind of feminist, but in the same at the same time, kind of like ridiculous and over the top. And
Yeah.
I think that's another way that both of these movies are definitely cut from the same cloth.
Oh, yeah. I have a movie on here that I just feel like is on theme too with it,
hmm
or one of my puzzle pieces was Jawbreaker as
Oh,
well.
sure.
Yeah,
Yeah.
and that's definitely like incredible violence, but in this like campy, fun, and very feminine way. But I also had it as a puzzle piece because of like using clothing and fashion to express a change in a character. And I felt like that
Yeah.
was really represented in Lisa Frankenstein.
Sure.
And in Jawbreaker, Judy Greer's character Fern like goes from being like, you know, like the Breakfast Club Ali Sheedy, like sad character to being like hot shit, later on. And that's definitely played in Lisa Frankenstein. I think it's so funny, like dressing better and being more popular is like always correlated with becoming more evil, you
Yeah.
know?
Sure. Yeah.
So the better you dress, the more evil you are, is the theme here. But
Absolutely.
I love
Yeah.
I love the costume choices in Lisa Frankenstein so much.
Oh
Um,
yeah.
Especially even like Taffy's character of the sister. I thought her character arc through her clothing, where she kind of like ends up becoming Lisa Frankenstein,
hmm
in the end with her clothing choices. And it shows her also going through traumas like Lisa had previously gone through prior to the movie plot.
Sure.
I thought that was really well represented in in the costume pieces, in the film. So, but
Yeah.
I love clothing, so I was like totally like giddy watching this movie so much.
Yeah.
Like every little piece, the hats, the dresses, the, accessories. I was just like, every time I saw a new piece, I was just like super thrilled. So, but yeah.
The color choices are going to tie into one of my other pieces later on, but yeah, I love that, and I love Jawbreaker as a piece here because like it is a movie where like our main character is kind of terrible, but we love her
Yeah.
anyway. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And that's definitely something you can tie in with Jawbreaker as well.
Yeah.
So I think that's a great one. You just mentioned The Breakfast Club. I'm going to go with another John Hughes movie for my next puzzle piece with Weird Science.
Oh,
Um,
yeah.
you get this lead character who's kind of like a misfit that doesn't fit in, and this story that's kind of problematic on purpose, and that's okay because it's just fun, but this character, instead of in Weird Science having this computer simulation of a woman come to life, Lisa Frankenstein gets her zombie guy to come to life, and he gets to have this like perfect guy for her, and so they both definitely have that kind of thing, and the outcastness of the
Yeah.
character, and it's also a great high school movie too.
I love how the perfect guy doesn't talk.
Yes, exactly. Yeah, that fits in perfectly with all of the feminist themes of the film. So
Oh, yeah.
that's great. What do you have for your next piece?
Okay, just to ride on that same theme, I have Encino Man because I felt like the hiding of the friend in the closet, was
Sure.
very on theme with that as well. And so yeah, Encino Man, they basically it's very similar. Like they bring a guy back from, I mean, he's not dead, he's frozen. They unthaw
Sure.
him,
Yeah.
but he doesn't speak. And they have to like mold him into society and hide him. Um, and oh, and also like to tie in, the 7 Degrees to Kevin Bacon, Carla Gugino, is that how you say her last name?
I believe so. Yeah, the
Who plays
stepmom.
Janet, is
Yeah.
in Son-in-Law with Pauly Shore, who's also in Encino Man. Just tying that
Nice.
in, but she is fucking incredible in Lisa Frankenstein. She's so scary. But yeah, I felt like it definitely had that vibe of Encino Man, and also like not questioning this corpse. Like she's like afraid of it for like literally 5 minutes, and then she's like, "Oh, come to my room, let's hang out. Where you're my new boyfriend or my new friend zone friend,"
Sure. Yeah,
Uh,
yeah.
and like in Encino Man, they just kind of go along with it. They're like, there's concern for a minimal amount of time for this stranger from the past, but then it's just kind of widely accepted,
Yeah.
you know?
It's
So,
like minutes at most where
oh
they
yeah,
like worried at all.
the stakes are very low.
I had Encino Man as well. I think it's a great one to include here. And I love also that Brendan Fraser's Encino Man in that, and Cole Sprouse is the creature in this. They don't know what's going on, but they also kind of seem to be enjoying it in their own weird way,
Yeah.
and I love that about the performances here. So, yeah, Encino Man definitely. Also to Carla Gugino, this wasn't one of my puzzle pieces, but just to her performance reminded me a little bit of the dad in the Twisted Sister music video. We're not going to take it. What are you going to do with your life? Like
Oh
reminded me
yeah.
of that guy. So yeah, she's awesome in this. But I will go. This was actually the first thing I thought of from this movie because I'll admit the first like 15, 20 minutes I was a little worried like this Lisa Frankenstein's not as funny as I thought it was going to be. It was
Hmm.
more weird. And once I kind of got on that wavelength of just the weirdness of Kathryn Newton's character and of the vibe of the movie, and it
Yeah.
is funny, don't get me wrong. There's a lot of laughs in it, but it's just not as broad as I was expecting. It's more weird. And so I started thinking of Frank Henenlotter's films, Frankenhooker, Basket Case,
Hmm.
these movies where like this strange outcast, deranged main character is just kind of talking to themselves the whole time, narrating every one of their moments and every single one of their moves throughout, like a clearly sick person that you're following through this. But they're so much fun to watch, and they're so much fun to like root for, even as they're like digging themselves deeper into this mess that they kind of dig themselves into. And I just recently rewatched Frankenhooker because of our Poor Things episode, and it's so much fun, and those movies are so great.
Yeah. No, Poor Things also was awesome. I have not seen Frankenhooker. Oh my God, I'm such a bad horror
Oh,
movie
you'd love
fan
it.
here.
You'd love it.
But I have seen Poor Things, and I thought it was really interesting how like two Frankenstein themed movies came out in the same year that were both incredibly feminist forward movies and very different but very similar at the same time.
Yeah,
With
yeah.
these two. And I saw them both in a week, and it was one of the best weeks of my life.
It's a great setup for a movie, absolutely. And I
Yeah,
think there's actually another one coming later this year, another Frankenstein-ish movie. And last year there was the Angry Black Girl and her monster. So there's like, I don't know, it's kind of a thing in the ether right now of these kinds
I'm
of like,
down. Yeah.
yeah, it's a fun way to make a movie. But what do you got for your next piece?
So of course I have to mention, I kind of want to mention these three movies. Actually, I have four that I want to mention like in a bunch, because
Sure.
they all kind of very much represent Cole Sprouse's character. First off was of course Edward Scissorhands, which
Hmm.
in my review I did on your Facebook page, I said that if Edward Scissorhands had an adorable little cousin, it would be Lisa Frankenstein, of
Sure,
course.
sure.
But themes from this movie, like the color palette and the set dressings, but even like the look of the characters were very, very similar to Edward Scissorhands. And like just Tim Burton's aesthetic in general. It also
Yeah.
reminded me very much of Corpse Bride,
Hmm.
especially in, the themes of like bringing someone back from the dead, but then also not really knowing what to do with them when they're on your hands.
Sure.
But the look of Johnny Depp's characters in, well, a lot of Tim Burton's pieces very much
Yeah.
was what Cole Sprouse reminded me of. But to go like way, 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 way back in history, I wanted to mention the Cabinet of Dr. Caligari, which
Hmm.
is probably one of the first zombie films, and it's not really a zombie. I don't know what they call him in the movie, but they have this character that is either dead or asleep, and he's roaming the city, and he's like very much like the look of Cole Sprouse in this film. But I mean, if you haven't seen that film, it's like one of the best, like early, early horror movies. Like this movie's from the 1920s or something. The
I think
sets are
it's
all,
1920. Yeah.
yeah, the sets are all like disjointed and weird. And because it's supposed to take place within like a crazy person's mind.
Hmm.
But I felt like this film like also had like sort of like this very much like weird world, as well. But,
Yeah.
Cole Sprouse's character definitely had the look of, the zombie. I forgot what his name is in Dr. Caligari, but just that very much that, you know, Edwardian Victorian look to him, and then the makeup, of course, like the sunken eyes and all of that. Um, but another one, which is not a movie, but a musical would be Sweeney Todd that I wanted to
Mm.
mention as well. With the look of the characters of, Mrs. Lovett and Sweeney Todd, kind of reminded me of Lisa Frankenstein and Cole Sprouse's zombie character. What is his name in the movie? Like they never even mention
Yeah. On Letterbox, they just call him the creature,
the
but
creature. That's good.
y-
Okay.
yeah.
Yeah.
So
We'll go with that. But also with Sweeney Todd, like in the musical, Mrs. Lovett convinces Sweeney Todd to start killing people so that she can sell these pies,
Yeah.
and in this movie, the couple kills people so that um, the creature can, get these body parts and extend his longevity, his life. So I felt like this, evil couple, like scheming and luring people in and killing them was very much on theme with Sweeney Todd as well,
Yeah.
but, also the whole aesthetic is very similar. So, yeah.
Yeah, no, absolutely. You got to get a lot of Tim Burton in on this, and like as far as like Sweeney Todd, I think is a really great one to include because of the costumes and
Yeah.
all that. Like it's very like it's horror, but it's also like kind of 80s rock influenced in the styling of all the characters. And this is set in 89, I think. I think I remember. But yeah, it's like, big hair and big costumes and all that kind of stuff. And it fits in really well. I actually have not seen The Cabinet of Dr. Caligari. It's been on my list for a long time. I need to watch it one of these days. But
It's really good.
yeah,
I like it. It's definitely one of my faves there.
right on.
Just
Right
I don't
on.
know. The set design itself is just really, really cool. So, yeah.
Awesome. Well, I will go. I'll stick in. I'll go to more campy for my next puzzle piece. I'm going with Little Shop of Horrors.
Oh, okay.
It's talking about this girl who has to basically start killing people for her, creature
Hmm.
companion, and again doing it in just a silly, campy, over the top, ridiculous way. This movie could have easily had musical numbers. It's a
Oh, yeah.
$13 million production, but raise that budget a little bit, get some, great little songs in there. This could have easily been a musical. But yeah, once things, start getting violent and the blood starts spilling, it's like totally in line with that, silly, campy violence of like a Little Shop of Horrors kind of thing. And just the fact that she has to bring victims to her creature.
Yeah.
Again, that kind of goes in with what you were saying with Sweeney Todd. It's exactly that kind of thing of like they get together and then the violence starts. So
Yeah. And then there's like always that dilemma of like, do I keep killing people? This is wrong, but it's something that has to be done.
yeah,
What is more
yeah,
important, the lives of other people or the lives of the person that you love and care about,
yeah.
as well.
Always the person you love and care about. Definitely.
Speaking of
That's
like feeding the monster, recently I just watched Michael Keane's movie The Head,
oh
uh,
shit.
which is like kind of similar to Little Shop and like this movie in the sense that the guy has to keep feeding the head blood, in
Sure.
order for it to survive, and he goes through that same dilemma, you know.
I wonder if we brought up Little Shop on that because we did do our first ever live episode was on the head,
Yeah,
and I wonder if we brought up Little Shop. I can't remember that far back, but we probably did. That seems
yeah.
like a great puzzle piece for that movie.
That movie, The Head, I don't know, it changed me as a person. I definitely lost a little bit of my sanity from watching
Yeah,
that, but yeah,
yeah. That's what Michael Keane
disturbing.
movies will do to you. But what do you have for your next piece?
So I wanted to bring up One Flew Over the Cuckoo's Nest with
Okay.
Nurse Ratchet, and Carla Gugino's character of Janet, uh, in the scene where, oh man, I'm gonna have to spoil the movie on
Oh,
this one.
spoil away. We get into spoilers here.
Oh, okay, for sure. But in the scene where she gets unalived, um, just like her whole monologue, like right before, and like she's in her nurse costume, she uh is like sick from like food poisoning, and like the makeup is like streaming down her face. It just gave me like Nurse Ratchet vibes, and I'm almost positive that's what they were going for with her costume choices at the time, and making her a nurse character, which is incredibly frightening. She is terrifying in this movie, and almost everything else I've seen her in, she's like friendly and cute and, a nice person. She's like the mom in Spy Kids,
Yeah.
but yeah, just because of that one character, it just reminded me so much of it. So yeah.
That's fun. I like that one. That's a great pick right there, and I would imagine a definite inspiration on that character. So I think you're definitely onto something there. I will go with for my next piece. I'm gonna go with Jim Jarmusch's "The Dead Don't Die," which is a very like weird, dry take on the zombie genre. We see her watching Day of the Dead in this. That's more Dawn of the Dead. The Dead Don't Die, but just taking what could have been. Again, I'm talking about this movie being more weird than it is like outwardly broadly funny and comedic, taking this setup and making it drier, making it weirder and stranger, and like making the character a lot darker, but then dressing it up with we're talking about like all the bright colors and all that kind of stuff.
Mhm.
It's an interesting dichotomy between the tones of the movie, and I think that is a movie that really does that really well as well, where you kind of are like, what exactly is the point of view here? But then, like, as you get into it, you're just kind of like, you know what? It's a fun time, and I'm here for it, whatever the point of view is. And you could kind of like read into the tones of it that way. Either it could kind of go either way. But yeah, it's a fun movie, but at the same time, it's like super dry and weird, and that's why I wanted to bring that one up.
Very cool. I haven't seen that movie. I have to check that out.
Yeah, absolutely. Great cast. Lots of weird little cameos. I mean, it's a Jim Jarmusch movie. Of course, it has weird little cameos. But yeah. What do you have next? Do you have another piece you want to bring
Okay,
up?
so my last one is kind of, I don't know, I feel like it's out of left field, but I definitely felt the vibe with this film with one particular scene in the movie. And, I guess there is a lot of violence in the film, so I guess it works. But I picked the Texas Chainsaw Massacre.
Okay.
Um, I guess in terms of violence, but in the scene where it's right after Taffy's, caught cheating. Oh my God, I'm spoiling the movie so bad. Taffy's caught cheating,
Spoil away.
and uh, which, oh my God, can we take a moment just to like process like that whole unhinged plot point in the movie where they're like, they kill the boyfriend for a specific part of his body.
Uh-huh.
With that logic in mind, like when that was happening, my mom was in the theater next to me, and I was just like, oh my God, I brought my mom to see this movie. And
Did she laugh? Did she what did she think?
she, like, after the movie, she was like, oh, that was nice. you know,
That was
like,
interesting.
I thought she was gonna like it because it was a really cute movie and everything. For the most part, it's like 80% adorable,
Yeah.
But then, like, there are some moments that I was just like, oh yeah, yeah, uh-oh. But it's all good. But so anyway, so they kill the boyfriend, and Taffy is like experiencing trauma, and there's this
Oh,
like connect
sure.
between Lisa and Taffy, but like Taffy's like completely gone, like she is completely traumatized. And there's this point where she like stumbles out of the car and she starts to try to flag down other cars and like run away. Just reminded me so much of the end of Texas Chainsaw Massacre, when the girl escapes finally. She's the final girl. She's escaped. She's running down the street. She's trying desperately to like get some help, and she's waving down cars, and she obviously waved down the wrong car, but you
Yeah.
know, it just, that one piece just reminded me so much of that. I felt like it was definitely an homage, little throwback to that movie.
Yeah, that's a good pull. I hadn't thought about that one, but I definitely, can see where you're coming from with
Mm.
that. Because yeah, she's just like super traumatized and just looking for any car that'll stop for her. And yeah, no, it's a good one. I like that. I will go my last piece. I almost wasn't going to include this one, but a friend of mine actually suggested it. And it's "Tie Me Up, Tie Me Down" from Pedro Almodovar. It's a movie about a guy who gets out of a mental institution and then kidnaps a porn star, and basically she falls in love with him, even though he is insane, basically.
Mhm.
And here's this guy who's a zombie and who's basically forced to stay in this teenage girl's room, and they do fall in love. Spoiler alert
That
here,
whole
but
Stockholm
yeah, the Stockholm
syndrome,
thing of it,
Beauty and the
yeah.
Beast.
And so like, and I was thinking to myself, like, that's actually an interesting and weird kind of connection to make here. And I decided to like, just, I don't know, just out of, I don't usually look up my puzzle pieces ahead of recording, but I decided to look it up. And sure enough, Zelda Williams was looking at the films of Pedro Almodovar as far as the use of color in his
Hmm.
films. And so that has to be on the list. I was like, you know what, I'm including it. But yeah, all those, big, bright primary colors, and you were talking about the costumes and the hair and all that kind of stuff. Definitely a touchstone of his films and something that she was actually going off of here.
Very cool. I'll have to check that out, you know. 'Cause, like,
It's a
yeah,
weird
that's
one.
definitely something I enjoyed almost the most thing or the biggest thing I enjoyed from the movie was the color palette and the
Yeah.
set. Like, I wanna watch that movie again and, like, pause at certain areas just to look at all of the set decorations and dressings in the background, especially,
Yeah.
like, some of the living room scenes where all of the, like, tchotchkes and knickknacks and all of that in the background, like, oh my goodness, and
Yeah.
I probably remember some of that stuff, you know, from being really young in my
Sure.
parents' houses or friends' houses.
I have to assume that stuff is written into Diablo Cody's scripts because it seems like all of her movies are like that, where
Mm.
like every single little piece of set decoration is like perfect for that time period, and it's all things you could be like, almost like Easter eggs, even though they're just background things.
But it really adds, to
It
the
does.
film,
Yeah.
and, like, great directors will think of everything. Like, I remember, I've watched several documentaries about, The Shining, and how
Hmm.
every piece, like even the mistakes, they're not mistakes. They were probably planned because
Yeah.
Stanley Kubrick would meticulously go through the sets and pick out, every little set dressing. So, yeah, great directors care about those. The details really matter, and it really adds to this film.
Absolutely. Well, I will get down to our finished puzzle list here, and then we'll get into some closing thoughts. We talked about Jennifer's Body, Jawbreaker, Weird Science, Encino Man, Frankenhooker and Basket Case, Edward Scissorhands, The Corpse Bride, The Cabinet of Dr. Caligari, Sweeney Todd, Little Shop of Horrors, One Flew Over the Cuckoo's Nest, The Dead Don't Die, The Texas Chainsaw Massacre, and Tie Me Up, Tie Me Down. I'll add in there also something I was thinking about. The movie didn't actually go in this direction, but it was something that came to my mind at one point. Bill and Ted's Excellent Adventure.
Oh, yeah.
It was kind of hinted at that this creature was like a famous pianist before he died.
I think there's time travel.
Yeah, so it kind of it kind of fits in there. So, but yeah, I don't know. Is there any kind of closing thoughts? Anything we didn't quite get into while doing puzzle pieces?
I don't know. I wanna go see this movie again,
Hmm.
because I feel like I just missed so much. I so many, like, Easter eggs in this film. It's definitely gonna be one that I purchase, on DVD when it comes out, so I
Yeah,
can have a hard copy of it, you know. I just loved it, and,
yeah.
you know, probably my fashion choices, for the next couple weeks will be very much influenced by this
Nice,
film, you know,
nice.
uh, just yeah, just a great, fun, you know, doesn't take itself too seriously at all. I love camp, we
Yeah,
need more camp horror, in this world, we take
definitely.
ourselves too seriously sometimes.
Hmm. Oh yeah, for sure. Yeah, no, the only other thing I wanted to mention is the soundtrack, which just lots of great music, like time period, music that fits the period, but also
Oh,
music that
yeah.
just kind of fits the vibe of that period. And yeah, I think even that adds to something we've already said here is that this could be a musical. Like I could totally see like some of like the local theaters putting together like a Lisa Frankenstein musical or something like that. I think it would be really fun.
Something to think about. Our local theater just or is still doing the Screamed musical,
Yeah,
right
yeah.
now. So yeah, definitely something to think about. That same theater did the Craft, the Majestic Repertory Theater. I should shout them
Yes.
out because they're
Yeah.
fantastic. But they did the Craft several years ago. So yeah, Lisa Frankenstein.
It would fit right in.
Try and make it happen.
Yeah. It would be perfect. Well, Tia, I think that does it for Lisa Frankenstein. Is there
Yeah.
another movie you watched recently that you'd like to recommend to our listeners?
Oh my goodness. If I tell you what I watched last night, I I should just tell you. I'm like super embarrassed. But I have it actually next to me. Last night I watched Lion King 2, Simba's Pride. Um,
Nice.
Literally in reach, like I have my TV, which you might,
Oh, wow.
think
Yeah.
is cool. It
Oh,
is
yeah.
one of those TVs with the VHS player attached to it. But that movie, I forgot how actually awesome that movie is.
Wow. Okay.
Like Lion King is Hamlet. This is more like Romeo and Juliet. But, what really actually makes the film good is that they took music from the Broadway musical The Lion King that wasn't in the original movie,
Yeah.
that was added for the musical, and they used it in Lion King too. So the music's great. Uh, I don't know why I'm recommending that movie at all.
I love it. I love it. Well, Barry Jenkins is making a sequel to the live action quote unquote Lion King movie. And I wonder if that is going to be inspired by this Lions King 2, straight to video VHS movie. It'll be
Yeah,
interesting to see.
maybe. It's one of those like gems where like it's a sequel, but you're like, this is a really good sequel. Like very rarely is the sequel as good or better than the original. I could
Yeah.
think of very few, like Adam's Family,
Mm.
the sequel was fantastic.
Oh, yeah.
Um, but this, I don't know. I'm just talking about Lion King 2 right now.
Hey,
Oh.
somebody had to do it. So, well, tell us about what you're up to right now, Tia.
Oh, okay. Yeah. I mentioned my podcast. I probably will be doing more episodes, when I am in good mental health, down the line. My podcast is called My Weird Little Podcast, and we talk about weird stuff. But I wanted to promote the play that I'm in right now. So I am
Hmm.
a local actress. If you're making a horror movie, I work for pizza. Um,
Nice.
so please cast me. Little shameless self promotion there. But I'm in a play called The Pass, and it is about a couple giving each other a hall pass,
Hmm.
which is, allowing them to, leave monogamy for one brief moment and
Hmm.
the drama that ensues. This will be happening in Henderson in March. I don't have like a website for it, so you're gonna have to either follow me on Facebook or Instagram. But the dates are March 15th, 16th, 17th, pretty much through the 23rd. So the 15th through the 23rd. There is a Monday night. But if you follow me on Facebook, follow Tia Bean, or on my Instagram at Tia is the coolest, because I
Mm.
am. I will
Yeah.
be posting about it. The past. I play a horrible person, which is, totally my wheelhouse. So, yeah, if you're curious to see me act, you want to see what I'm up to, check out the past.
That sounds like a lot of fun. I'll definitely put a link in the show notes to your social media so people can
Cool.
find out more about it. And yeah, thank you so much for doing the episode. And hopefully, we'll get you back again sometime.
Yeah, thank you for having me. This was really fun.
All right, so I hope you enjoyed that conversation about Lisa Frankenstein. Thank you to Tia for joining me on that one, and thank you to all of you for listening. If you're enjoying piecing it together, of course, make sure you're subscribed wherever it is that you're listening. And if there happens to be a 5-star button that you could click on, it would be very nice if you click on that 5-star button. It helps make sure more people check out the show, and we want to just keep doing stuff doing the live shows like the one we just did, doing all kinds of fun things. We're going to be announcing more live shows here soon. We actually already announced 3 more, but I've got other things that I'm announcing very soon too. So just keep listening. Make sure you're subscribed, follow on all the socials, and check out our Facebook group, Popcorn and Puzzle Pieces. Like I told you at the top of the show, lots of fun conversations happening in there about movies. And yeah, that does it for today's episode. I got to close this out with something kind of goth. That's the only way to close out an episode like this. And actually, I happen to be right now in the middle of finishing up and releasing a new one of my comedy dog and cat albums, the Pup Pups. And one of the songs is actually a kind of goth song called Chasing Shadows Again, about our cats running around chasing shadows. So this feels like a good one to play. And at the time this goes up, you still have, I don't know, I think like about 4 or 5 days left before the end of February. If you pre-order this new album from the Pup Pups, it's called Variety Snaps. If you pre-order it before the end of February, there is a bonus song I'll be recording that closes out the album. I don't care how long. It could be 10 minutes long. It could be 20 minutes long. However many pre-orders we get, I will include your pet's name in the song. There will be a whole little verse on your pet. So get your pre-orders in. You can do it at thepuppups.bandcamp.com. And you could also just contact me directly, and I will set you up with an order. But if you get it in before the end of February, your pet's name will be included in this ridiculously extended song. So go do that. Check it out. It's a really fun album. I think you'll enjoy it if you're a pet lover. I'm going to close it out right now with the goth track Chasing Shadows Again, and we'll be back with more Piecing It Together real soon.
Something over here, something over there, something under here, something under there, something on the ceiling and there's something on the floor. There is something I can see it underneath the bedroom door. Every single day and night she is going out of mind, jumping into boxes trying to see what she can find, running all around the house and she just looks insane. She is just a little kitty cat and she is chasing shadows again, chasing shadows again. Day to the night, night into the day, the little kitty chasing all the shadows away. She chase them all around, but she never seems to win. Run around the house and in the back where she begin. There, underneath the table and there underneath the couch. She catch him with the paws and she catch him with the mouth. Run around the house and she must be insane. She's just a little kitty cat, she is chasing shadows again, chasing shadows again. They go again, and 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 again. Chasing shadows again. Shadows again.
An All Points West production, produced by David Rosen in Las Vegas.